Hello and welcome to Monster Mechanics, where we take creatures of myth and media and see how they can be improved. I am your host, Scott Paladin, and with me as always is the blossom to my bubbles, Zach Jaquays.
How's it going?
And with us as never before is the Captain Picard to our blossom and bubbles, James Malloy.
Hello.
And today we are going to be talking about interesting targets for xenomorphs. All right, so let me explain the premise of this episode just a little bit, which is that we've seen from the Aliens movies that if a xenomorph infests a different type of creature, that changes the body structure and some of the qualities of various of the xenomorph that comes out. So famously in Alien 3, the Alien movie that broke the Alien franchise, the xenomorph was infested by either a yak or a dog, depending on which version of the movie you saw, and therefore was quadrupedal. And so we're thinking about what would be interesting creatures to have been infested by a xenomorph and what kind of horrifying and or hilarious monster would result. On that note, Zach, why don't you start us off?
So my first impulse was to go as weird and horrifying as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking the Hydra, which is a creature with multiple heads that regrows heads every time one's cut off.
Right.
And so my first thought was like, well, would you need multiple face huggers for that to achieve the desired effect, or would you just need one?
Oh, that's a good question.
But I also just love the idea of this a completely unstoppable lizard-like xenomorph that every time you cut off a body part, it regrows back twice.
And also, it bleeds acid blood.
Yeah, that's what I was going to think. If you cut one of those heads off, it's like a sprinkler of acid flying out, which is not good. Although the, if I'm remembering my Greek myth correctly, the blood of the Hydra is incredibly toxic too. The number of problems that Hercules solves in his quests by just shooting a arrow dipped in Hydra blood at somebody, and then, although that also causes problems, occasionally he's dropped them on people's feet and stuff, and that was enough to kill them instantly. So maybe that's actually a downgrade. I definitely think that, I mean, geez, I don't know. I think you do need one face hugger for every face, though.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem right if there's just one. So, yeah, that's pretty terrifying. James, do you have one?
Yeah. So this all kind of started from a Twitter conversation that I saw from Jordan D. White, who's a Marvel editor, and he was saying, why is it aliens versus predators? Like, is it just because they're both aliens? Like, why wouldn't it be like aliens versus Star Trek?
Yes.
And so out of that conversation, I have come around to, I think that the best thing to merge a xenomorph with is a tribble. Because obviously then the xenomorphs come out furry and more highly reproductive. And so you would just end up with like hundreds and hundreds of cat-sized furry xenomorphs that instead of hissing, they just kind of like purr or do whatever the heck the tribbles do, and they just like glom onto people, I guess.
See, I like the idea of a furry xenomorph, although I have to say that in my head, it's because like humans have hair and xenomorphs made from humans don't. And the same thing with other creatures. So maybe they would be these little, like, you'd get the body type of the tribble, but not the fur, which is a egg or sac of keratin, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is just like a little pus sac full of acid, basically.
Ugh.
A little hissing egg.
Yeah, like one of the like a hairless cat version of a tribble.
Oh, jeez. Oh, those hairless cats. Oh, God.
The Sphinx tribble.
Like, and I was thinking about it later too, that it solves the problem of with the xenomorph, like the story structure you tell with the xenomorph is like you pretty much start all those movies with the maximum number of aliens that you're gonna get.
Yeah.
And so it's a reduction of them as you defeat them slowly. Versus like like a xenomorph tribble mashup lets you tell a more like zombie storyline.
Yes.
Where there's like an increasing number of them until they become this overwhelming horde.
Yes.
Of just weird hairless cat egg things.
Yeah, for sure. You get this sort of logarithmic expansion and exponential expansion, which is a very different structure for how the xenomorph stories are typically told. The one that came to mind for me was, I don't know why, but Furbies. And I guess it's because we just watched Gremlins the other day, but the idea of a squat little xenomorph with those big eyes, well, I guess I wouldn't have eyes. So it's just got the flat face with where the eyes should be and the little beak. And the incredibly creepy Furby speaking, I think, has to come across too.
Well, in the original version of Aliens, like you could actually see like the human skull.
Yeah, It's in the concept art.
beneath like the keratin and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if you could see like the little Furby face or something in
Oh,
there,
man.
just
Yeah.
with the outer bits removed.
I will link it in the show notes. If you've ever seen a Furby with its skin taken off, they are pretty terrifying.
They are terrifying. Would a xenomorph Furby have another smaller beak inside?
Oh, yes.
The larger beak.
Yeah, whoever thought up the second mouth that comes out is brilliant. And
So kind of on that same note of like the Hydra and whatnot, like I also had the idea for a Medusa based, where you just got like a whole bunch of those mouths ringing the head, just like the double mouth.
oh yeah, that would be a good Medusa. I think at that point you have a more like human structure on the face, and then you've got the little xenomorph
yeah.
heads, or just the yeah.
Just the tongue, like mouth, but instead of being like hard and sort of, it's like wavy like a snake, but with a little like mouth in the end, just hissing.
That's awful.
Ugh, that's terrifying. Why have we done this?
This is what we do, man. People sign up for it. Oh, that's gross. I also was thinking slightly about the absurdity of a beholder that had been infected by a xenomorph, which I think beholders are orb-like, and I think a xenomorph beholder has to be a very long, like it's got to be the full head, right? It's got to have that long extra head part with all the little stalks coming out. And then instead of shooting rays of disintegration or whatever, it just sprays the acid out of the mouths.
Just because I love that, like with xenomorphs, they don't have the eyes, so you've just got like this big floating bean, basically.
Bean shaped.
I'm trying to think if there are any interesting like Pokemon,
Ooh,
like a Ditto that's been infected by a xenomorph. Would just be this
I
weird.
think I think Ditto wins in that scenario.
Yeah, that's true, actually.
Oh, actually, Kirby. Kirby eats a xenomorph and turns
Oh,
into
God.
a xenomorph.
Oh Lord.
He loses his eyes. He gets a tail with a
Yes, exactly.
hook on it.
And I think canonically Kirby is like on par of power-wise with like Elder Gods and stuff. I do not know a whole lot about the canon of Kirby, but I know that it's absolutely bonkers.
And he has a second smaller mouth that sucks in smaller things, I guess.
Just like one of those little vacuum attachments.
Yeah, to get into the corners.
It's a little dust. Oh, that's all right. That's it. We're done. James, if people want to find you on the internet, where should they look for you?
I am on Twitter pretty much constantly as @EndTheMeltdowns, and also I produce a couple podcasts. A couple podcasts now.
Yeah.
I produce and host Stop Back and Roll, which is a game design talk show, I guess I'll call it. And then I also produce, edit, and star in and GM sometimes Party in City Comics, which is a Max actual play podcast. And I produce and edit, or I co-produce and edit Outstanding, which is a sister podcast.
Yes. Which, if you haven't heard of it so far, I've already been plugging it a few times here. So you should go listen to Outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding is very good.
It is.
Well, I would normally plug what next week's podcast is going to be, but we haven't recorded that or even decided what it is yet. So your guess is as good as mine. On that note, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
All right, take it easy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was great meeting you, man.
Thank you for listening to this Monster Mechanics mini episode. No call to action this week because I can't be bothered to think of one. So we're just going to go straight into the credits. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. Our guest this week was James Malloy, who can be found on a bunch of podcasts, and you can find him on Twitter @AndTheMeltdowns. All of the ideas produced during this podcast are released under a Do What the F You Want public license.